This video covers chapters 1 and 2 of the Behrens and Russo Evidence-Based Decision-Making textbook. We'll begin by considering what evidence-based decision-making is. The authors start by suggesting that good quality decisions require both critical thinking and the use of the best available evidence. In this case, we want to gather evidence, which we'll talk about in future modules in this course, and then critically assess and apply it using your critical thinking skills. So we need both our own thinking abilities and also the evidence in order to arrive at the best quality decision. The authors go on to define evidence-based decision-making as an approach to decision-making in day-to-day work practice that helps practitioners to critically evaluate the extent to which they can trust the evidence they have at hand. It also helps practitioners identify, find, and evaluate additional evidence related to their decisions. The types of evidence that the authors discuss in the chapter 1 and then throughout the textbook is evidence from practitioners. So this we'll touch on in module 2. These are experts in the field. They also discuss scientific literature. Most often this is from peer-reviewed scholarly journals, which we will discuss more in depth in module 3. The book will also touch on evidence from the organization. This might be financial documents, employee reviews and evaluations, or more. This we'll discuss more in module 4. And the final form of evidence will be from stakeholders. These are people that have some type of value invested in the organization. We'll talk about this more in module 6. In order to better understand how to gather and apply evidence, the authors then move into chapter 2, where they talk about underlying assumptions and how to ask critical questions to get at those assumptions and the problem at hand. So the authors discuss that a claim, assertion, or hypothesis that we believe or accept to be true, even though there is no available evidence yet, is the definition of an assumption. So essentially, it's a belief that we have that we don't have evidence to back up yet. This could be something that we assume to be fact, since we haven't found any contradictory evidence. But it's something that we believe to be true. We assume it to be true, and that makes it kind of an assumption. So we see this happening a lot in work and day-to-day life today, where people have an opinion, but not necessarily a scholarly source or a research article to back it up that would offer evidence to support that particular claim. Sometimes those assumptions can be hidden or unrecognized. So we might assume that a particular solution is preferred and not really have any evidence to back it up, not really know why even we feel that way. But these assumptions can affect decision-making. So it's important for us to dig around in that particular area and become more aware of what assumptions we have, even if they're hidden or unrecognized, so that we can make the best decision possible. The book then offers a way for us to help plan out and identify the problem and solution that we're wanting to gather evidence for. So the authors offer what they call a PICOC, and this is defined more on pages 24 and 25 of your textbook. But the P in this case refers to the population that's affected by the problem. The I stands for intervention. This is the intervention that will help address the particular problem. C is for comparison. So we would be looking for maybe different intervention types or variables that might be influencing the problem or the solution. O references the desired outcome that we're hoping that the intervention results in. And C is the context. So we have to better understand the environment that the problem and solution are housed within. So the book gives an example of an executive at Yahoo making a decision pretty quickly, maybe without thinking through and fully understanding the population, the intervention, comparisons, so different options. I also have an example as well that I'll offer. So this is based on the work that I do in my day-to-day in academic advising. So for me, one of the problems that we discuss quite regularly is students that depart the institution. So students that decide not to re-enroll or come back. And most often, this is related to students being on academic probation or who aren't being academically successful. So they might choose to leave the institution, perhaps because the institution tells them they have to, or perhaps because the student feels like they're not being as successful as they should be. So in this case, my population that I would be looking at is students on academic probation. The I, or intervention, that we might offer would perhaps be a required academic success skills course. So many colleges offer a course like this in the second semester for students who did not do as well in the first semester. C would be the comparison. I might decide to call other institutions and see what they offer. We might talk within different departments. We might offer to have faculty do a little bit more outreach to students within particular majors. So I can compare in quite a few different ways. The outcome that I would be looking for here is improved academic performance. Specifically, we would be looking for students to move their GPA above the 2.0 mark, which is required for undergraduates to graduate. And then the last one that we would have is C, which for me would be the context, which for the most part would be our institutional context, so the college. But additional context might be the pandemic that's going on. So nationally, there's some very large context that might be affecting students' ability to be successful academically. But additional context too, if a student is an athlete or needs to carry a certain number of credit hours for financial aid purpose, courses under the 100 level can affect those types of things. So we would want to be aware of that as well. So the PICOC can really help dig down to see the details of the different levels of the problem. It helped me define exactly what the population is, the intervention that I could be offering, a few other options via comparison, what the outcome is that we're going for, and then a discussion on the context as well. So we'll be using these throughout the class. You'll actually have a PICOC required as part of your final project. So this is something that you'll want to flag in the book, maybe put a sticky note there and take a little bit of extra time to make sure that you understand the PICOC that the authors discuss. So the authors then move on to talk about defining the problem and identifying solutions. So the book starts with asking what the assumed problem is. So this is very important, right? We don't want to go setting up an intervention and looking for a solution before we know whether a problem even exists. So the book asks us to clearly define the problem first. So this would be the difference in my world between saying students aren't doing well and saying students who earn below a 2.0 in a particular semester are 25% more likely to depart the institution. So we want to make sure that the problem is clearly defined. That way we can also identify what the consequences are. So in my case, the consequences might be decreased student success, right? So students who aren't doing as well academically will not be as successful at the college. They might be more likely to depart. Maybe they're, like I said before, 25% more likely to not return to the institution. This lowers the college's retention numbers, which could also then affect grant money or federal money that we receive if we have to stay at a certain level of retention. So now we're talking about institutional financial support as well. So we have multiple serious things happening, students that aren't being successful, so aren't matriculating to graduation, and then loss of revenue perhaps for the institution in terms of tuition dollars, but also federal or grant financial support. So lots of reasons to think about that particular problem, but having those consequences available helps us know how serious the problem is as well. And then we also want to know what the evidence of the problem is. So for that, we might need to do a little bit of research. And this we'll talk about in future modules where we're talking to practitioners, stakeholders, scientific literature, and within the organization. And then you would also want to be able to present your preferred solutions. And here we might have 3 or 4 different solutions based on the problem and the evidence that you think would help result in the outcome that you're looking for. So we want to make sure that we've thought out a clear solution that we're going to offer. And then we would be able to present that to our superior, our colleagues, to see if we might be able to help address the problem at hand. So that's just a little bit about chapters 1 and 2. There is a second video in this particular module that follows about bias. So you'll want to be sure to follow this video up with that one as well. We will discuss bias in depth in modules 1 and 2, but also throughout the course. So as we're thinking about the problem and the solution and what the evidence of the problem is, it's also very important for us to be mindful of our own biases. So you'll want to head over to that video to follow this one up.